G'day guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wildkard. Super Rugby, round 15. Final round going into the elimination rounds. First game, Crusaders versus Reds. I was actually looking forward to this game, but yeah, this game was a bit of a stinker. The two teams looking going to be playing each other again next week in the elimination rounds. So yeah, both teams kind of just came out and just went, well, we got next week ahead of us. We're just gonna kind of just do a few things and see how we feels, and yeah, just knock off for the game. Both teams really lack the polish, lack that mental solitude to really push through for tries, and just really a lot of small mistakes for both teams. Drop balls, uncharacteristic drop balls as well. Will Jordan drop ball, Ethan Blackadder drop ball many times now for him many times this season. And then yeah, both teams did not look that great. But the main talking point out of this game is the absolute abominable referee in Super Rugby, okay? The referee in Super Rugby changes, not just week by week, changes every game. The interpretations of the law changes every game, from these referees. It was just so bad. Ben O'Keefe is supposed to be, I think he's supposed to be the highest ranked referee in New Zealand. He goes on to TV shows explaining to the fans how decisions made, and he's just absolutely clueless. He seems to feel for some reason, Ben O'Keefe feels like it's his job to reduce the penalty count and justify stupidity by the players. I don't know why. He thinks it's his job to make sure that there are fewer penalties, fewer red cards, and fewer yellow cards by not interpreting the law correctly. It's unbelievable how bad this was. I was so angry when I saw the yellow card given to Pablo Matera, which should have been a red. I almost turned off the TV. It was just so bad. Okay, it's just unbelievable how bad this was. Pablo Matera, just so you know what happened, picked up Jordan Patea in a clean out, and he literally picked him up to his shoulder high, and he chucked him onto the ground, and Jordan Patea landed on his shoulder, literally inches away from landing directly on his head. And the referee says, he landed on his shoulder, therefore it's only a yellow. What? Patea has to actually kill him to get a red card? If that was 2 inches further, he would have broken his neck. Are you kidding me? He literally threw him onto the ground whilst 2 meters off the ground, lifted above horizontal, throws him onto the ground, almost landed on his head. Literally, if he actually landed on his head, Patea would have been broken his neck. He would have ended his career. What? That's what he needs to do to be a red card? Are you serious, Ben O'Keefe? Do you have a brain, dude? It was just unbelievable. You watch these things, you're how can that not be a red when accidental head collisions is red card? We've seen people get head collisions in Iraq going for a clean out, accidentally hit each other in the head, yellow cards, red cards at times, and this literally is gonna kill someone if he did that. If that didn't had gone any further onto his head. Oh yeah, only yellow. He didn't kill him, right? Yeah, he's still alive. Hey, TMO, could you just check if he's still alive? He's still alive? Okay, fine, we'll go back to it. Mitigate it down to yellow. How is that mitigation? How is that mitigation? The fact that the purple player didn't get injured is considered mitigation factor now. Oh my god! Just chuck him on the ground from 5 feet off the ground. Just throw him and dumped him down on his ground. Oh, he didn't land on his head. Oh, that's a mitigation factor. He didn't land on his head. Only inches away. Oh my god, the fact that he landed on his shoulder, he still landed on his head right after, just because the initial impact was on his head. He's still folded on his head after the initial impact. Nah, yeah, he didn't die, right? Yeah, he didn't break his neck. Yeah, that's alright, guys. We'll mitigate. That's mitigating factor. He didn't die. We'll mitigate down to the yellow. I can't believe. What is New Zealand Rugby doing with the referee coaching? This is unbelievable. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Should be a red card any time of the day. Yeah. And then we get, anyway, I'm repeating myself at this point. It was so bad. So, this was worse than Nick Berry. Anyway, Ben O'Keefe, this was awful, mate. And then anyway, let's talk about the actual game performance. So like I just mentioned, both teams seems to have the elimination game coming up next week in the mind. So both teams look really scrappy, really clunky. A lot of drop balls for both teams. Even like superstar players like Will Jordan, Ethan Blackadder was dropping the ball left and right. And and then for both teams, the execution were bad. Lineouts, both teams look bad too. Both teams had lost a few of their own lineouts. The defense was much better for the Crusaders. So overall, the Crusaders did play much better than Reds. This was a pretty comfortable win for the Crusaders, despite the scrappiness for both teams. Both teams seems to just be like, well, let's not just throw the kitchen sink at each other today when we have next week to worry about. So both teams just kind of not really pushing for that, kill, so to speak, for the game. But the Crusaders did have much better in defense. The Crusaders had better kicking game as well. Both teams was in that situation, kind of like, hey, we're not really sure what to do here. Let's just put up a kick and see what happens. Like, that was way too much in this game. There was a lot of pointless kicking. But the Crusaders, despite that, Crusaders did have slightly better kicking game as well. The Reds had like a 50-22. That's probably like one of the best, like the only good kick from the Reds. From Crichton, was it? Well, not Crichton. What's his name? We'll have a look at his name later. From the number 10 replacement for James O'Connor. And once again, without James O'Connor, the Reds attack just looks so flat. There's just no options, just really basic stuff. Few passes, crash balls, pick and goes, really basic stuff. There was no flair, no spark from the Reds team. And the fact that the attack was so stale, the Crusaders were just able to, like, not stopping the Reds go over the advantage. Like, the Reds was literally running the brick wall for most of the game. Yeah, so this was really difficult game for the Reds. Only able to got 2 tries on the ball. One of the tries was after Pablo Montero got yellow carded. No tries in the first half of the Reds. And this was one of those games where I think both teams had next week in mind and really didn't put in 100%, so to speak. So let's have a look at the overall stats. Crusaders 4 tries to 2, 560 run meters to the Reds 355. So if you look at the actual like possession and stats, both teams are actually pretty close. So Reds actually has more carries. 123 to the Crusaders, 119. At halftime, the carries was 56-45. So Crusaders has slightly more carries in the first half, and the Reds has more carries in the second half. Despite that, the Crusaders all did way more run meters than the Red, which means the Crusaders a much better efficiency at their carries. Also means that the Reds had really poor defense. So at halftime, the Crusaders had 248 run meters to the Reds 101. So the Crusaders more than double the run meters at halftime with 56 carries to 45. So slightly more carries, but more than double the run meters. So much better efficiency out of the Crusaders attack for both halves. Defenders beaten. Crusaders already beaten 21 defenders at halftime. Yeah, I know. 21 defenders beaten at halftime, 30 overall. And the Reds beaten 5 defenders at halftime and come back a little bit with the 20 defenders beaten in the second half. Turnovers conceded, halftime, 7 to the Crusaders, 8 to the Reds. 18 full-time for the Crusaders. 17 turnovers conceded for the Reds. And so the tackle count, wow, this is a pretty high for both teams, actually. Total tackle count for the Crusaders, 186 and 25 missed tackles. Reds, 144 tackles to 30. At halftime, the missed tackle count was much better for the Crusaders. The Crusaders had 68 tackles made, 5 missed tackles. Reds had 69 tackles made, 22 missed tackles already at halftime. So yeah, much worse performance for the Crusaders in the second half, and much worse for the Reds in terms of tackle completion in the first half. Now this is the thing. This is like watching the Lions tour, Springboks versus Warren Gatland Lions team, right? Just kicking game all day. 31 kicks for the Crusaders, 30 kicks for the Reds. This is really high for Super Rugby, especially for the Crusaders these days. Usually Crusaders around 10 kicking on that marks these days. 30 is really on the high end for both teams. And this is a little bit of a uncharacteristic strategy for both teams overall. Neither teams are known to be like the kicking team in Super Rugby in 2022 at least. And this is like a really big outlier for that stat. And lineouts, as you can see here, 3 lineouts lost for the Reds, 1 lineout lost for the Crusaders. Scrum, again, this is actually a mistake. there's actually one scrum loss for the Reds. There's a tied head win for the Crusaders in the first half. They actually won the Red scrum, 5-meter scrum, and I think they scored a try afterwards as well. But there was a 5-meter scrum where Crusaders won, and it looked like the scrum was pretty steady, pretty even overall, except for that one time. Penalties conceded, 11 penalties conceded for the Crusaders, and 8 against the Reds. The halftime penalty conceded was 4-3, so 4 penalties conceded for the Crusaders, 3 to the Reds. More penalties conceded in the second half than the first, and 1 yellow card. Should have been a red. Awful refereeing. Ben O'Keefe, mate. Like, honestly, just follow the guidelines, mate. There's no need for you to try to change the interpretation of the law every week. It's just like awful to watch. Honestly, didn't even make sense. Like, it makes no logical sense. So anyway, let's talk about the game. So right from the beginning, it was pretty noticeable that both teams are kicking a lot. Will Jordan was able to kind of exploit that a little bit with his slightly better kicking. So the Reds were just basically getting pinned inside their own half for like right away because they can't exit from the kicking game. 10 minutes in, the Crusaders gets on the ball. Yeah, this is the scrum. One scrum lost by the Reds. The Reds had a 5-meter scrum. They were like holding on. Finally gets a 5-meter scrum for their own for exit. Crusaders wins their scrum. They turn the scrum over, and then basically they get the ball out, spread the ball out wide. They go to the right hand side. They exhaust the space from the right, and then they swing back to the left. And then what was his name? Burke busts through 2 missed tackles. 2 missed tackles. Goes in for the first try for the Crusaders. Really soft defense there by the Reds. 7 points to nil. 10 minutes into the game. 4 minutes later, Will Jordan goes in for his first try. This was too easy. The Reds was trying to run the ball out of their own half. The Crusaders turned the ball out, and then just like the Reds was not even going forward at all. Turn the ball over, and then start attacking. Basically, the Crusaders had some quick balls. The big man Bauer prop crashes through, gets really close, like 5 minutes short, and then the ball comes out really quick, goes to Drummond. Drummond runs into the line, draws the defender, inside ball to Will Jordan, runs in, too fast, goes straight in under the sticks for the second try for the Crusaders. Suddenly, Crusaders up 14 points to nil, less than 20 minutes in. Yeah, and then the game kind of slowed down a bit. The Crusaders was looking like super good, super sharp for the first 20 minutes. And then suddenly it was almost like a light switched off. They started to play just like the Reds, dropping the ball left and right. Like their own lineouts going awry, just like losing the ball, like not straight. Lineouts not straight. I thought Cody Taylor wasn't playing this game, but it surprised me. Lineouts still not straight. And having basically... the Reds finally getting inside the Crusaders, getting inside the Crusaders half after 22 minutes, not able to execute, or just like loose balls, and just way too much kicking, and then the Crusaders just able to hold on to the ball, stopping the Reds from scoring. The Reds got really close at one point, 1 meter short, and the Crusader turned over the ball. So yeah, like it was just really bad for the Reds. After about 5 minutes inside the Crusaders half, on the 25th minute, Reds goes, okay, enough is enough. We've been here long enough. Let's get some points. Takes 3 points. Walks away. 14 points to 13. 25 minutes in the 25 minutes game. 25 minutes in. Once again, the Reds were struggling to exit their own half, their own like danger zone, and just really slow ball, and they're just really struggling a lot with trying to get up over the advantage with Crusaders defense. But the Crusaders, again, not able to get their own execution correctly. It took till the 36th minute for the Crusaders to finally give themselves another try, despite seemingly having more go forward than the Reds. They kind of followed up with a penalty, goes for a 5 meter line out. The first line out gets penalized for collapsing the maul, so Crusaders goes for a second line out. Again, this maul was collapsed. But the Crusaders, instead of just milking for the penalty, they just rolled the maul around and just kept going with a little peel, little side maul, just peeled off and went off the side and just pushed over puts the ball down for a try. So this was a really well executed maul for the Crusaders. The Reds did collapse it illegally, but just that, you know, that determination, that mindset of just keep the maul alive, just peels off and goes, and Chick just kept going with another maul rolled off to the side. A well-deserved try just before halftime. And the halftime score was, what was the halftime score was 21 points to 3. Yeah. Despite like the territory and possession were pretty close for both teams, but the Crusaders, like I mentioned, has much better meters due to the Reds' poor defense. Second half starts. It took so the second half started, the game kind of like slows down a little bit. There was a lot, still pretty poor. There was a lot of drop balls everywhere. There was a point where the Crusaders looked like they made a line break. It looked like Will Jordan was wide open. I think it was Enor throws a pass to Jordan. Jordan just drops the ball, and then finally on like the about 55 minutes in, Matera literally picks up Jordan Patea to his chest high, throws him onto the ground, almost landed on his head, and apparently Jordan Patea didn't die. It was a mitigating factor, only yellow card. Finally, with the play in the bin, the Reds were able to execute this line out. They basically kicks the ball out for a line out. The ball comes in. The Reds just kept the pressure on, pick and go. Eventually, Asayata, the hooker, redeems himself with his poor line out throws, goes in for the first try for the Reds in the second half. 10 points to 21. On the 61st minute, the Crusaders, the Crusaders gets inside the Reds half. They were like 5 minutes short again. And it looked like Blackadder was going to go over. He was just like 5 minutes short. And he was running onto the ball. He drops the ball. Yeah, again, just uncharacteristic stuff even from like Will Jordan and Blackadder. Eventually on the 66th minute, the Crusaders finally able to execute. The Reds, again, repeated more penalties against the Reds for collapsing. The Crusaders was really close to the try line. They take a quick tap. The ball gets get stopped short, and then the Crusaders just continue with the crash ball. And it looked like Christie's crashes over. He rolls. It looked like he gets held up. The referee's on-field decision held up, and then TMO had to check this, and it looked like the ball touched the ground just before it was pulled back up, or before the Reds player could get his hand under. And just inches away. It looked like the tiny blade of grass touched the ball before the Reds player was able to get himself under it. So Christie's gets this try, 28 points to 10 with the conversion. And finally, on the 71st minute, Reds gets a comeback try. There was, again, Reds were finally getting able to build some pressure inside the Crusaders half, get into the number 22-meter line. I think there was a line out. And then basically the Reds just crashed the ball, got really close, and then they quickly went to the short side. There was like 4 players on short side, good hands in the train tracks, all the way to Wilson. Wilson gets the ball on the sideline. He runs in, big man. He did like a little jump in field. He was going to get pushed out. He jumped himself back in field, back in a little bit. So it was like a step in field, but it was more like a jump. And he crashes over. Big man for the try for the Reds. Conversion was not successful, and that's the final play of the game, basically. Reds 15, Crusaders 28. Scrappy game overall, really terrible referee, and hopefully next week will be a better game. I'm sure next week will be a better game. But yeah, let me know your thoughts about this game. I thought the worst part of the game was the referee decision. Pablo Materas did not kill a man, therefore all the charges were dropped. Thanks for watching, guys. I do appreciate you being here. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys tomorrow. A big day tomorrow. 4 games back to back, including a game in Fiji. And that'll be really good to see. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you guys tomorrow. Cheers.